Hi, and welcome to The Print. My name is Karanjeet Kaur, and I'm a writer and an editor. Let's talk today about Amit Shah's recent remarks on the English language, because it's been 11 years since the Bharatiya Janata Party rose to power in India. And there is a long list of victories that the government can claim. But defeating a language isn't one of them. Union Home Minister Amit Shah made that clear at a book launch last week. He said that those who speak English in India would soon feel ashamed, and that the creation of such a society was not far away. He went on to say that Indian languages are the jewels of our culture, and without them, we cease to be truly Indian. He also stated that to understand our country, our culture, our history, and our religion, no foreign language can suffice. The idea of a complete India cannot be imagined through half-baked foreign languages. Amit Shah also went on to say that he was aware of the challenge, but also fully confident that Indian society will win it. Once again, with self-respect, we will run our country in our own languages and lead the world too. Now, Amit Shah's pronouncements aren't emerging in a vacuum. For years, language debates have simmered in India. Most recently, these have been around the new education policy's three-language formula, which southern states view as Hindi imposition, although the policy does not explicitly mandate Hindi. Tamil Nadu has been especially vocal in its resistance. They've labelled the policy a direct assault on linguistic federalism. The timing of Amit Shah's remarks is also important. They were delivered just as Bihar prepares for polls in October and November. Tamil Nadu's elections are due next April. In light of all of this, the remarks are carefully calibrated electoral ammo. By villainizing English, the BJP is no doubt betting that linguistic nationalism will energize its base in the Hindi heartland, even if it alienates the southern states. Now, the backlash to Amit Shah's remarks was swift and very likely desired. The leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, wrote on X, "English is not a dam, it is a bridge. English is not shameful, it is empowering. English is not a chain, it is a tool to break the chains." He went on to accuse the BJP and RSS of opposing English education for poor children to suppress their ability to question authority and demand equality. Meanwhile, Kerala ministers R. Bindu and V. Semunakutty dismissed Shah's remarks as narrow-minded, warning that discouraging English would only make Indians' worlds more restrictive. From other corners of the internet came memes and videos of Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaking in English at a recent Bihar campaign rally.
India will identify, track.
Another of Jay Shah, chairman of the ICC and son of Amit Shah, speaking English rather haltingly. Now, all of these reactions ignore the fact that when Amit Shah derides English speakers, he's not just talking about the language. He's referring to a phantom enemy that has befuddled the BJP RSS machine for years. English is actually code for a clever adversary that we've known in the past variously as anti-national, Tukre Tukre gang, Lutyens Delhi, champagne leftists, limousine liberals, and my personal favorite, Khan Market gang. Several of these labels have been around since Mr. Modi's first term. But the last gained currency in 2019 when the PM famously identified them as a cabal of people that wanted to dismantle the legacy he'd built with 45 years of tapasya. Crucially, this gang has kept the non-elites, the Hindi-speaking heart of India's population, from adequate representation in the corridors of power. Aside from a handful of non-compliant journalists and writers, no one has yet been identified as a Khan Market gang member. It is no one and everyone, a shape-shifting enemy that expands to include anyone who has a passing problem with the Indian state. It was originally used to refer to Delhi's English-speaking, Western-educated elite who frequented India's most expensive high street. But the gang's membership has grown magnificently elastic. Say you are a farmer from Punjab or Haryana, taking exception to bills that didn't take into account your descent. Maybe you haven't even heard about the existence of Khan Market, but mentally and spiritually, you are a member of the gang. Or say you are an NGO activist. Your integration with the Khan Market gang organically began the day you chose to work for non-elites. You know, the same people that the BJP represents. Or let's say you're a young JNU student. The gates of middling coffee shops and overpriced wine bars are probably closed for you. But no one can wrest your Khan Market gang membership card from your hands. The genius of the label lies in its infinite flexibility. It can absorb any critic and anything can be blamed on the Khan Market gang. No one embodies this contradiction better than Shashi Tharoor. On odd days, he's Exhibit A of the Khan Market gang's English-speaking treachery. On even days, he's dispatched to represent India's interests at global forums in the same shameful colonial tongue. But here's why Amit Shah's remarks on English are particularly rich. After 11 years of railing against Lutyens' Delhi, you could argue that the BJP is Lutyens' Delhi. They govern from the same corridors. They live in the same bungalows that they claimed were symbols of elite capture. As outsiders who promised to drain the swamp, they now control every single institution that they once accused of being compromised. And that includes executive and regulatory bodies, investigative agencies, and even media houses. Yet somehow, the Khan Market gang remains the perpetual threat. In 2022, Caravan magazine wrote about a Khan Market caste of mind and the failure of the urban elite to reckon with caste in a meaningful way. It is 8 years since 2014, certainly time enough for any efforts at increased diversity and inclusiveness to show up. But consider the G23 list of the Congress. More than a third are Brahmins and half are either Brahmin or Thakur. Consider the NDTV ads of their anchors, beaming down at us. A majority of them Brahmins, all of them upper caste. Look through the editorial ranks of even the new digital portals that lead the challenge to this government, and you see the same old caste profile, the article stressed. So the same Brahmin-dominated elite that the BJP claimed to challenge continued business as usual. Meanwhile, the masses who believe this anti-elite promise face a more complex reality. While there is clear evidence that India has made significant strides to reduce extreme poverty, our employment figures tell a different story. This is economic growth that doesn't translate into sufficient job creation for a young, expanding workforce. Policy decisions like demonetization and pandemic lockdowns hit the informal sectors hardest. These are constituencies championed by the BJP. Meanwhile, champagne liberals, insulated in formal employment and inherited wealth, weathered these storms largely unaffected. India's non-English speakers have been promised a moving target of a 5 trillion economy and dreams of becoming the Vishwaguru. Yet, both these headline objectives require exactly what Amit Shah now wants Indians to abandon. English dominates international commerce, scientific research, diplomatic engagement, and knowledge exchange. India's IT and service sectors, which once represented upward social mobility for lakhs of families, exist because of our English proficiency. So when Amit Shah promises that English speakers will feel ashamed, it begs the question, how exactly does India plan to become the Vishwaguru if its citizens are ever more insular? Phantom enemies are fine. Every government needs a few. But when you convince people that their limitations should be viewed as patriotic victories, the consequences extend far beyond politics. This is how a country talks itself into irrelevance.